All right, welcome to another Indie Comic Exchange. I'm Kurt Brugel. I'm joined by my partner Jake Jacobs and our special guest for interview number 13, Tanner Hurley. Sir, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you for sending not only one, but two variant covers for your. This is your inaugural uh,
It is.
push into comics, right? Rin.
Yes. Yes, it is.
All right. Well, congratulations. You're very
Thank you.
far
Thank you.
apart, very far ahead of us.
Yeah, it was a fun project. Man, it was a crazy learning curve. Um, I was involved in comics years ago. Uh, pre 9/11. I kind of got into indie comics, and I belonged to a studio, and we were gonna self-published comics and stuff like that.
Right.
Then 9/11 happened,
Right.
and I ended up joining the Air Force for 4 years, and then crossed over to the Army, and then that turned
Wow.
into a full career, and did that until injuries just caught up with me. And at
Sure.
my 19-year mark, the Army said that I was a little too busted up, so they medically retired me, and
Wow.
um,
All right.
and I said, well, I only know how to do two things. I can blow stuff up, and I can make comic books. So I tried my hand in good God, what was that? 2022. Um, yeah, is when I got out, and it's kind of a funny story. I started a comic company called ETC with some friends that we had friends from the Air Force, and it stood for End Time Comics, and it was a play off of EC Comics, and
Ah.
we had created it in 2016, and said, oh, when we get out, we'll create these comics. So I finally got out, and I said I did everything that I said I was going to do, and then we were going to launch it under ETC, and then there was just so many issues, like any Murphy's law, anything that could go wrong went wrong with ETC. So I had to dissolve that. So in a pinch, I'm like, well, I got this comic, and it's done, and it's an anthology, and what am
And
I
this
going
is
to
the one
do?
you're talking about, right?
And that's what I'm talking about. So
Okay. Okay.
on the fly, I think it took me about 2 days. I just did a little bit of research. I was like well, it all came. We were drinking wine with some friends, and it happened to be Apothic, and I was like, man, that just sounds cool.
Oh,
Um,
I've drank
you
that.
know.
That's a good wine.
And I was like, man, that just sounds really cool. I was like, man, is there? I wonder if there's a publishing company. And I did my research for about 48 hours, and couldn't find anything. So I went forward with copywriting, and becoming Apothic Press. you know?
Sweet, sweet. And then, how do you? The big question I know Jake and I have together is the getting to the Kickstarter. So you obviously have product that's ready to get assembled and printed and then distributed. But was Kickstarter basically a duh, like everybody's doing it, or was it just something that you had run across, based on maybe not getting to the comic book stores or through Diamond per se, and just getting started small?
Well, being military, I had come across Kickstarter because I was a big comic fan, and
Mm-hmm.
came across Kickstarter as a collector. Because you move
Oh,
around a lot, and some places don't have comic book shops, or they do, or
right.
they're kind of far away. Um, so I got into Kickstarter and like Indiegogo crowdfunders, and I liked it too because it was into a lot of it is independent creators, and
Yes.
I'd rather give, because I'm not gonna lie, I like my interest in the big, honestly, the big three, Marvel, DC, and Image Comics was severely waning. um
Yes. Like all of
and
us.
Yeah, and we can deep dive that later,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. Um, but I said, if I'm going to give my money to somebody, I want to give it to like indie creators, like me, out there. So I'd become, I had built up and become a what do they call it, a super backer or whatever, and then I said, well, now it's my time. I'm retired, and maybe I'll use this to fund my comic,
Awesome.
and thankfully, we funded. It was a learning curve though, because like I severely undercut, what because I came into it's kind of
Hmm.
funny. I
Yeah.
came into it thinking, oh, we need to make comics affordable again. The going rate, it seemed like, for comics was $20, and I've been doing this for a while, and then I realized, like I wasn't buying as much, and it was kind of pricing me out of comics. And I figured, well, if it's happening to me, it's probably happening to other people, you
Right.
know, and you know, so I kind of undercut the price of the book, so we funded, but yet I had to come out of pocket to produce Ren,
Oh
because
wow.
just
Okay.
things like when you're thinking,
Uh-huh.
alternate covers and
Right.
stuff like that, the more comics you produce, the more expensive it gets and everything, and so I
Right.
had that learning curve, and it was like, okay, well, won't make that mistake again,
And
but
you're not
Question.
making a cheap book. Not and Jake said it when we first got your books and we were flipping through them off the air. I mean, you've got a really high quality book here, just in the
thank
print.
you.
I mean, the art too, full color and such. But this is not a flimsy floppy.
No,
So
no, I mean,
was that a part of the increase in costs?
it was.
Okay. Okay.
I knew what I wanted quality wise, and I tried to come out the gate just swinging for the fences, and
Sure.
I saw people making a living off of comics, and I said, well, I can do that. So, it was kind of, if I remember the old interviews with like Mark Silvestri and whatnot, and him seeing his, I believe it was his cousin drawing or his brother, and but anyhow, it was a relative, and he was like, "Oh, I could do that," and then did it and became Mark Silvestri. I didn't really have delusions of grandeur or anything. I just, like I said, I wanted to try to make a living doing comic books, and the whole conception behind Ren was heavy metal had I'd heard rumors that it was going out of business, or no, I'm sorry, I get ahead of myself. It was when they dissed the fans over
Yes.
Tarna,
Yes.
and that hit a chord with me, and I was like, well, if you don't want those people, I said, I'm a big heavy metal fan. um I can write, and I like sci-fi, and so I set out to create a character that was one part heavy metal, one part Lobo. Loved Keith Giffen. It was a big homage to him. And characters of that nature.
Yeah, the Tarna stuff is great. We actually covered that in an episode of Comics That Influence. Um, and heavy metal was doing floppies at that point. So can you take us back to the comics that you were before you started making comics? What were your classic, like? Because they say, the comics that you're reading when you're like 12 are the ones that stay with you forever.
Oh
Um,
man,
so
he ain't lying.
yeah, so what are the comics or the creators that really got a hook in you in the beginning?
So I'm in my early 40s now, and when I was 12 and 13, I was most definitely the demographic of Image Comics.
Right.
And
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie, I loved X Force. When Liefeld came on the scene, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. People razz his style and everything, but he's actually really good at layouts and dynamic posing, and he's got the chops, you know.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
he hit the mark with me, you know. Extreme Comics, it was like, oh man, these guys are young guys, and they're making comics, and it's like something out of a Jerry Bruckheimer, you know, film. And it just really stuck with me. So all those, you know, extreme titles were a big influence, you know, on Rin. You know, the idea was to kind of mix a 90s style with like a heavy metal, and you know, Bisley and stuff like that kind of influenced me coming up.
So that was the stuff that you really collected and you really adored. But where do you weigh in on like the you know, we Marvel started in 61, DC was around like, you know, from the 40s. The classic Marvel and DCs, do you have a preference, you know, to either one? And you know, do you have some favorite creators that go before the 90s?
Oh, before the 90s. Man, for I
I
mean,
mean,
I
if
do
not, it's
have
fine.
I do have creators, like, you know, I was really big into Frank Frazetta. um Frazetta was a big influence on me. um but thinking about the big two, like, you know, the early Star Wars books, and probably you know, Walt Simonson. um
Oh wow.
his
Yeah.
stuff, his Marvel work, you know, his Thor. um
Beta Ray Bill.
Beta Ray Bill had a big
Woo.
influence on me.
Mm.
You know, like it was. Yeah, I just felt like, you know, yeah, it's Norse mythology, but it just had this sci-fi aesthetic to it. And of course, Jack Kirby. You know, I love Kirby stuff. Um, you know, his designs were very influential to me. Um, and I think that's what I liked about Liefeld, was his love of Kirby as well.
Yeah, I love Simonson when he was doing the Metal Men. But pretty much anything he does, he has such a unique style. You know, it really
He
sets
does.
apart from everyone else. Um, yeah. So now take us through. So you know, you're making the comics, and take us through the odyssey of finding collaborators.
Well, I'd had some friends over the years, and the art that you see there is Benjamin Sanchez. And man, Benjamin, like, I came across him because he's best friends with my friend Edgar, Edgar Wolf, who's the colorist of the book. And Edgar has this background. They're out of Mexico City, and they both have. Ben has a background like animation, um, and in comics as well. They're in Mexico. And Edgar had a lot of editing, you know, editor EIC positions with gaming magazines, like EGM, and uh, just these different gamer magazines that were brought over to Mexico. He'd worked for Rolling Stone Mexico, so just a lot of print experience. So, you know, I kind of, you know, tapped him a little bit and was like, well, I want to get into, you know, comics, and, you know, would you be interested? And he was like, oh, I'm definitely interested. And I got a friend, you know. And I was like, oh, you got a friend? Okay. Well, let's see his stuff. You know, I'm down, you know, if you're. And he got me in touch with Benjamin. And yeah, his stuff just blew me away. You know, we started talking. We all got, you know, the same influences. Like I said, that heavy metal, um, you know, background, 90s, you know, comics and things of that nature. Um, and it was just kind of a match made in heaven. And then, you know, I said I wanted I'd do an anthology, so I started, you know, scouring the internet. And you know, I went to Instagram, I went to um, DeviantArt, and I just scoured. You know, I'm looking at for that kind of became like a full time job. Like, I would take a day and I'd just sit behind the internet looking for people, and then once I find someone I'm interested in, I shoot them messages. And I was relentless with it too. Like, um, oh my gosh, you know, sending, I was on Messenger. If they had an email, then I was shooting them an email. But I was just like shotgun blasting people
Right.
until they basically talked to me. So I was probably borderline annoying, but like I said, if there was an avenue, I was like, man, this is the person I want.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of scrolling involved in finding somebody on one of
there
those
is.
sites, definitely. But there's talent out there, so
There is.
you
There's so
know,
much talent out there.
yeah. And you just got to find somebody that's interested in the same project, genre, influences, the time availability,
And that's true
money.
because it's definitely about, well, yeah, the cost, definitely, but then it's also feeling them out. I had I grew up, really following Todd McFarlane as a businessman. I think he's top notch. Um, and I remember reading an article where Todd had said, he's never hired a collaborator that he didn't like as a person. So I kind of, thought, well, that's the way it should be. You should have a rapport with everyone, and I think you'll get a better product out of the deal. Um, just like that, what you're looking at right there is Edgar's work, and I mean, he did the whole thing, whole 9 yards, and we, like I said, we were good friends, and it did, it just led to an amazing product. I end up ultimately on Instagram. I end up finding Laser Wolf, as he goes by, on Instagram, and he did that first chapter at the beginning of the book, and it just really summed everything up for us nicely. We hit it off, and he had a style that I was looking for. Like I said, I wanted that heavy metal type
Yeah.
look, so I was looking for guys that had a nuance of that style.
Well, it's definitely, from my take on it, the attraction is heavy metal meets Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh man, and it's
It's
funny that you say that. It's exactly where I went with it. Um, Man, yeah, because that's what I used to tell everyone when I got on
it's
Kickstarter and everything, and
right.
they're like, "Oh, tell us a little bit about your book," and I'm like, "Well, because that's what I was a big fan of."
Yeah.
I went back and I found some old art from when I was in grade school and stuff like that. So all the villains are, these stupid names. I have Dr. Demento and
Yeah.
the
The
Heriter and
classics.
all these things. Yeah, they came out of me watching Thundercats and Silverhawks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely would
you
Yeah.
put
know
Silverhawks on this one. But
yeah.
so moving a little moving ahead here. What are you doing to actively promote yourself? And
uh,
obviously this the publishing company. Um,
Well, I took to social media, and
okay,
I joined just a ton of groups. All these sci-fi groups and comic groups,
Facebook.
and Facebook. Yeah, on Facebook. Yep. And then I had an Instagram account, and basically I would just shotgun blast. Um, new artwork, new little tidbits and stuff like that. Teasers, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm not super good with social media. To be dead honest with you, like it,
Who is?
it's it's tedious. It's so, oh my gosh,
Oh
it's so tedious.
yes. Oh
Um,
yes.
you know but I'd get out there and I would just shotgun blast a bunch of stuff, and if people wanted to respond or comment or stuff like that, in some cases I'm a co-host on another show that's on the Madness comic network on YouTube, and I'm on Doc's Coffee Shop. So I kind
Okay.
of, when I have a new project, obviously I let the people that watch and follow us um, know about that as well.
Say that again. Doc's Coffee Shop.
Doc's Coffee Shop.
Okay, yeah. Kurt will put a link in the description.
I will.
Right. So now, so one burning question. I love. Kurt said, the print quality is good. You got these really stiff covers. This is really going to protect them through the years. comics can get really beat up over time.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
do you want to talk about the print runs? Because I know we have a couple of different covers here.
Yes.
Um, and bring us through the decision. And you're probably like looking at all kinds of prices, but you have a bunch of different covers, right? So bring us through the I guess the limitation and the variants.
Well, I went out and I was going to cons, and I'd find people and whatnot, and I was building up a circle of friends in the indie comic community. Obviously, I knew I wanted. I had a cover for Edgar. I had a cover. Benjamin had a cover. Man, I had a friend out of Peru, and I tapped him for a cover. Um, Damn, in hindsight, I really should have sent you guys everything.
Oh
That way
no,
you
no,
could
you did.
highlight it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if you send me afterwards images by email, I'll flash them up, and so
Okay.
we'll show the whole. There's 6 of them, right?
Yeah, there's 6 of them. And then I was good friends with Steph Wilson, and if you don't know anything about Steph Wilson, indie comic cover artist, just an amazing guy. Him and Carrie Ann that do covers, and she colors. And I told her, yeah, I'm doing a book, and they quoted me a great price, that I just couldn't beat for a double cover, a regular version and a naughty version, which I think I sent to you guys. And I was like, man, that's awesome. And then they helped me out with, well, do you have a logo? And I said, yeah, I got a logo, and send it to us. And then they kind of looked at it, and they were like, well, we could fix this for you. And I was like, well, how much? And they're like, no, we'll fix it for free. We're friends.
Oh wow.
So I mean, they were just real stand up people in helping me out with the production of the book and everything. Um, so they had a cover, and then I was an artist, and I sent you the one that I did, which I called the Toxic Beach cover. So
Right.
that was done by myself, and my friend, who's dear friend Ivy, excuse me, Ivy Gladstone, who did the color covers on that
Is this
one.
is this like a watercolor original, or is this like
That's all digital.
it's all digital? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Her background is she was a big fan of Liquid, from the '90s, doing stuff for Joe Mad and um, Top Cow type stuff. Um, and she nailed it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't give, as an artist myself and a big fan of collaborators, like I don't give a lot of left and right limits. I just kind of, maybe I'll send a character sketch design, or if I did some crude colors, I'll send it. Well, this is the color layout, and I'm like, well, have fun, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I usually get the best results out of it.
Right. Yeah. So what were the runs? If you count them all up.
Oh, you're only looking at like I'd say tentatively 60 issues per cover,
Okay.
roughly 60,
So
70.
like 360 in total.
Ru-
Did you do the like instant rarity thing that they're doing? Like
No,
when
I just kind of said, these are the alternate covers here. Get what you want, because I saw all these people, that I admired had alternate covers, so I kind of went crazy with it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff is really gimmicky. So you put them all out with equal proportions,
I
and
did.
so the three, so a run of three in the 300s. This is not offset, right? This is
Mm,
the digital presses.
yes.
Print
Right.
on demand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Print on demand.
Right.
Who did you
Yeah.
Who did you use? If we can
I
ask.
use Hero and Villains out of
Okay.
what is it,
There
Arizona?
seems to be so many out there.
There is, but
Well,
what I like about them is they're creators themselves. The
Oh
Crawfords,
wow. Okay.
it's Krista and Stephen Crawford, and they just have an eye for for the detail and the process and the love of it being that they're creators themselves.
Right.
So
Right.
I think the whole project was just a match made in heaven. From the printers that I chose to the personnel working on the book.
Kurt, if I could bookmark something,
Okay.
could we try to get those printers to talk to us?
Okay.
Because
I'll try.
because they're creators. First time
Yeah.
I'm hearing something like this.
It's true. It's true.
Sounds like an awesome find.
Oh, they're
Bookmark made.
amazing. What's that?
I said bookmark made.
Yeah, Matt, imagine you have all this equipment, you're taking orders, and then you're seeing all these, books come in, over the transom, and maybe somebody needs a little hand with something. Like what an interesting position to be in, right?
Well, and it's cool because they send you the templates. Like it was my first go, so I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, and they were so they were so accommodating
Helpful.
because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, I'm sorry if I'm asking a bunch of questions. They're like, no, it's no big deal, you know. And then they're
Yeah.
like, because if we teach you how to do it, then it'll be easy for you, down the road, and you won't have any issues. I was like, absolutely, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So they taught me so much, so much.
Great stuff, man. So yeah, the quality is good. What we really don't know is how the pages are going to hold up over time, um, compared to Offset or I mean, like when Image started doing glossy paper and everything, those books hold up pretty well over time. It's not like the newsprint that gets tarnished and everything. I have a feeling this stuff is going to last. I think
Yeah.
we'll see like 20 years from now, but it also depends on if you leave it out of a bag, all these different factors.
Oh, sure. There's plenty of factors that can, you know, I mean, for all we do, if you don't take care of it, there's ways of damaging it. Leaving
Right.
it out in the
Right.
sun, water damage, you name it.
So Tanner, can you give us some background on Rin, the character? Like what?
So
What?
Rin is a what I call a Calcarian. So she was this rare race of basically purple space elves, you know, and and I thought, man, well, I love sci-fi, I love fantasy, and I love merging the two, So she was really just a hodgepodge as I was drawing her, and I was like, oh man, let's give her. The original one, she had a leather jacket with spikes on it, and I was like, oh, let's give her a metal arm, and my friend was calling her the metal arm Medusa, and
Nice, nice.
so we just had all these different nicknames, and I was like, oh, we'll make her a bounty hunter, or um, and I kept drawing her with a smirk. So I kept calling her she had all these different nicknames, but I kept calling her the Merc with the smirk.
Yes.
So I think that's what I ended up naming the one
Hmm.
of the
It's on the
stories in
title
there.
The
page.
first story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. 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 Yeah.
you know.
So, you're saying like you're sitting around jamming some ideas with some co-creators and things emerge. That's kind of what we do on our podcast, on our Making Turbo Pit Fighter podcast. People can really see the process. But how does your military past work into that? I'm sure you got some tall tales from real life, right?
I do. I don't really put a lot of the like operational experience into it. But I mean certain just militaryisms, the
Lingo.
military speak, the acronyms and stuff like that. I think sometimes come to play when I have the radio banter. I know she's talking to a character called Bogan, who's kind of like a Charlie of Charlie's Angels type thing. You don't know
Right.
him. There's just this droid that he speaks through, and so he's this mysterious benefactor. That
Love the mysterious benefactor.
Yeah. And but anyhow, so I use military talk when they're kind of talking back and forth, but in terms of like my you know putting myself into the book, I really don't. I just make it kind of fantastical, and I have a deep love of sci-fi and things of that nature, so I wanted to just overload it with sci-fi and the 80s cartoons and the
Hey,
heavy metal.
Kurt, do I have time for one more question in this segment?
Yes, you do, sir.
So on that note, my favorite movie of all time is The Road Warrior, Mad Max Part 2. And that
Absolutely.
that influences everything that we're doing with Turbo, and and then this whole backstory world that we're building. What are some of yours? And especially I would love to know is like the writing, because to me a movie is really really like good when it has a good ending, and things make sense, they're tied together. So I know I'm hitting you out of the blank here, but one or two that pops in mind that really influenced you from the cinematic world, or maybe literature too.
Actually, like you, a huge fan of George Miller and his Road Warrior saga. Like I love all of them. But yes, definitely, Beyond Thunderdome hit me pretty hard when I was a young kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely remember that one. Um, I know that movie wise, Star Wars, the
Yeah.
originals, were an influence on me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a director for years on end. I said I was going to be a director, and then just growing up in small towns and stuff like that, it was you didn't really have the education outside of watching a lot of special effects, behind the scenes making of and things like that, which I did. I watched a lot of that stuff with my dad.
Yeah, I mean, if people think comics are expensive to make,
Yeah.
imagine. And if you're a creator, you're a director. If you're making comics, you're directing it. You're doing it on the page. We're doing it with visuals, but you have dialogue, you have pacing, you have color. You have printing. Techniques.
Well,
So
that's what kind of.
there.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No,
Oh, I was gonna say.
there's a lot of ways to be a director in a cinematic sense too.
Yes, and that's what got me into comics. It was like, look, you have an unlimited budget. You can do whatever you want. you know?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and animation's like that too, except you have all the labor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I think AI is really going to be shortcutting animation in the near future,
Well, man, I
and
really don't know a whole lot about that.
oh man, it's already happening behind the scenes from what I hear. But
Really.
they have these subscription services, and Kurt knows a lot about this. About you could just tell the AI to draw you a picture, of a an alien on the beach, with a galaxial sunset, and you want a lot of greens and purples. And then you see the picture, and then you tell it to revise the picture, and you go through successive layers of that. Well,
Oh,
we're not very far away from it saying, okay, make it an animated sequence, and she's walking down the path, and
Well, the big thing that's being talked about is the power of not so much depending on AI generating the image, but taking two images that you've made and doing as keyframes, and then
right,
making
the
the
in between,
movement in
yeah,
between. So because it will
oh wow.
have basically enough understanding and information knowledge wise to guess, and then you'll be tweaking. Right now, I mean, we're in the honeymoon is just about ready to end. They say it's going to be next couple of months. All fallout will be, in place with the government, with social media websites, all this stuff. But then
Wow.
what it'll come to are the platforms. In other words, keep
Yeah.
an eye on
Adobe.
Photoshop. Yep, yeah, Adobe.
Yeah.
But there'll be competitors. That's one of the
Google,
things.
Bing, all of them. They're all going to have an
But
AI platform.
one of the things is that everything has been held tightly close to the chest of OpenAI because it's owned by major corporations, Microsoft,
Yeah. They bought in.
so on and so forth. Yeah. So the thing I keep telling everybody, I play around with a lot of stuff. It's very small integration to my work, but what I'm afraid of, because Jake and I were lucky enough that when comics completely bellied out in '97, and we didn't really have a lot to show, Jake found Flash animation.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Jake also found somebody who just started making these animated shorts. What was the name of that company again, Jake?
Camp Chaos and
Camp
Bob
Chaos.
Seska.
Yeah,
By the way, Bob Seska right now is a radio, like a politics radio guy. He's huge in the West Coast and nationally, and he does national radio shows. So
but just to finish
he
up,
was one of the first guys getting into it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the reason I bring this up, and I'm telling all the creatives that I do, is I think what's going to happen is when you have the ability to storyboard, especially in the digital breakdown, frame by frame, we're going to be able to take our comic books and basically make motion comics, but the motion is going to be at least 100 times greater than what we've seen now, which is just really Photoshop effects in Premiere. Getting then that graphics kind of thing. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like keep making, let everything settle, and obviously when that one corporation, if it is Adobe, then start looking for the educational programs like Skillshare or just even YouTube, because that's what I do. Is I'm just trying to find people that are sticking to the game, not the narrative, and looking at it from a technological user friendly base. Because Jake and I did 3 years, and we were making $1,500 a minute animating for websites.
Wow.
Yeah, we really did well, but then there
Then
was
the
a
bubble
whole
burst.
well, it was not only the bubble, but it was the technology started becoming more and more accessible. People without kind of like, let's say, educational backgrounds in the arts and that, and so it literally, I ended up getting bought out by a local multimedia firm, and by the time I finished my first year, we could barely get $500 for 2 minutes, of animation and stuff. But once again, the creative spirit is really what it's all about. It's not what the technology can do for you. It's what you can do with the technology.
Well, I agree, because I did play around a little bit with Midjourney.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I get it. Everyone's like, oh, anti AI and stuff like that. But the way I look at it is, the genie's out of the bottle. Like,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I like the fact that like you said, you can put the prompts in, and it generates these images. I don't know about you guys, but I go through blanks. Times in my life where I just can't think of anything.
Right.
So that's kind of how I found Midjourney and some of these other programs that I was playing around with, and
It's just a great time saver, even if you don't end up using what they give you.
Yeah.
It just gets you off on that like first draft, and so then you're off and running, because like you're saying, like sometimes it's just a momentary block, and once you get unblocked, you can sort everything out.
And I
And
use
it's
it for
it's like
both.
having collaborators, but there's no collaborator,
Yeah, well,
right?
honestly, it's like having past, present, and future at your fingertips. Because I
Yeah.
used it with writing even. I had
Yeah.
Yeah.
this huge
Yeah.
writer's block, and I said, hey, give me a synopsis of Orwell and Rob Liefeld storytelling. And it meshes. Yeah, you know what I mean, or
Yeah.
whatever I can think of in my head.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it does, and it gives you like all these different ideas, and I'm like,
We
oh,
have
hey,
scanned the
that's something.
literary works of Robert Liefeld, and here's what we come up with. That's got to be a great prompt, right?
Oh, it came up with like I was belly laughing at some of the stuff it came up with. Um, but
But yeah,
then you can
the
deconstruct it, and you can work with it.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, always, almost always say, wow, that's really bad. But the format of it is great, and it just launches you into, because now instead of creating, you're just basically editing.
Mhm.
It's like you're paying somebody to do this, and they just turned in something awful, or just like predictable. I mean, when you do something like that, like put in a specific name, you can do a prompt and then you can get a couple of variations, but they're going to run out of creativity, because their data set is so limited unless somebody puts more Rob Liefeld in there. For me it was William Burroughs. I was like,
Okay.
give me some writing in the style of William Burroughs. Like there's a new William Burroughs, but it's not. It's just like they're just going over a couple things, and then it gets repetitive.
Yeah, well, I like I said, I just like to mix weird things. So I'll be like, oh, Clive Barker meets, I don't know, Frazetta, and what would they come up with, or Ralph Bakshi, you know,
Right.
Right.
and
Right.
then you would come up with these wild ideas. But then you still have to go in there, and you have to format it. You have to do dialogue, and then I'm drawing from Jim Shooter and Chris Claremont, and that's
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
when
bad names. Not bad names to dial up.
oh, definitely. Well, they're my influences for writing. Like I
Yeah.
always liked how Claremont left threads, and it was like a soap opera, and
Yes.
maybe
Well,
maybe this issue.
Claremont and John Byrne and those guys were all doing the X-Men when I was 12. And I was working at a comic store, and Chris Claremont walks in, and I didn't know who the hell he was. He was like, how are these books selling? And it was like, X-Men. It's the first thing on the rack, dude. It's like the number one comic. And then he was like, oh, he goes, I was just taking a professional interest, because I write this stuff. And then, now Kurt, don't judge me, but because I was only like 11 or 12, but I went over and I went down on the ground like near his feet, and I didn't kiss them, but I did notice he had sandals on with open feet, and so that it that is a very influential time, and those names that you're bringing up, like some of those story arcs, where like they turn into the Phoenix, or when the Sentinels steal everybody, take them to space. Some of those story arcs are so classic, but younger people can't get a hold of them because it's like $75 a comic, right? And you just have to like go buy some kind of like reprint thing,
The
right?
Yeah, like
trades.
the simile or
Yeah.
trade or something like that.
Yeah.
Right, which is
Yeah.
not the way to enjoy them, not at
No.
all.
But
You
we're
know.
really on an excellent topic 3, which is Tanner. What do you feel is going to be the future of comics?
Oh man. Well, I think everyone talks about oh, comics are dying. I see a lot of news about oh, comics are dying, and
Hmm.
it's on the verge, and I don't think comics are ever gonna die. I
We
don't. I think
agree.
it's it may never be the huge sensation that it was in the '90s, and but I don't think it's ever gonna die. I think there's always going to be some sort of love
Mhm.
for the medium, for print. Um, so I don't really know where it's going to go in the future. I don't.
It,
sometimes I look at it and I think, oh man, the digital thing might be taking off, but then I offered digital copies when I sold mine, and it pales in comparison to how much you sell
yeah,
in print. So
yeah,
Yeah.
you know
yeah.
I don't know, and then talking with you guys, it's like, well, man, it could be an animated thing could be the future of it,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
all we know.
we are seeing the kid. I'm a middle school teacher,
That's right. Yeah.
we are seeing the kids get a little more used to digital, but there's a huge divide between kids that have money and kids that don't, because nobody's giving it away,
Mhm.
And the thing about print is, once one kid is done with it, they can very easily pass it on, to another kid,
Well,
and so the kid didn't pay for it, but he's seeing it. I
and
mean,
that's exactly
yeah,
my point with, we need to, if you want comics to continue, comics have to be cheaper, and I get it, print quality is uber important. I was like, but at the same time, I do feel that the indie community is pricing people out of comics, and they've created this bubble, and I do feel that the bubble is going to burst. At some point
yeah,
the bubble is going to burst, and personally, I think we're on the cusp of that. I just feel like, with inflation and things of that nature, that people don't have that disposable income that they used to have. So if you want to continue it, you got to have that shooter mentality, where every comic is someone's first comic. I think
yeah.
is important. Then you got to have great storytelling, and you have got to have great art. Unlike the big two or three, right now, it's a lot of, um, I hate
Talking
to,
heads.
yeah, it's just, well, I don't know, it's just
Standing
real
around.
flat art, talking
Yeah.
heads, very flat. Everything kind of looks the same. I get it, people are doing digital art, and there's nothing against digital art, but when it looks cookie
Hey,
cutter
hey,
to,
Kurt, flip through those pages. I gotta hand it to you because I complain about this all the time, and sometimes it's even awkward if we have a creator on, and they have a lot of standing around. You got action packed pages, and you have layering.
thank
You
you.
have density. You have expressiveness. Your colors are really splashy. You're really staying to limited color schemes. That's a huge problem in the industry. Is like every page has every color. Big mistake. You have your character you're developing. The thing that you need is more time to make stuff, and
Oh yeah.
and we're all stuck doing all this promoting and
Yes.
administrative stuff, and the creators, if only they could create, and that's why it's great, to have a publisher, that just does all that for you. But then there's a big price to pay because you have to split it, and whoever's assuming the risk and whoever's laying out all the capital, is going to be first in line, and then sometimes there isn't enough to go around, and it's just it's just a great creative field, but there's a lot of problems with the industry and the distribution, and you know of course, big corporate America acquiring Marvel, acquiring DC, and they're doing what they want to do with it to monetize the IP rather than cultivate artists and spread, like expand, the pool of artists, that actually get the exposure, right?
Yeah, because there's so, like you said, there's so many great artists out there. There's so many people that are want the work, but at the same time, I think we've gotten away from being from being an EIC, editor in chief, and I was getting submissions from people, but you can't sit there and some people are really good, but the cream rises to and some people need a little bit of work, and I wasn't afraid to tell people, hey, yeah, you need some work, I can't publish your stuff right away,
Yeah.
wasn't a good fit. And I'm not saying be cruel or anything to them, but
No,
there's
you just say it's not for me. I mean, we go through the same thing. I just paid an artist in Brazil $70 a page. And we only got like one page in before I realized, like, we got a serious language problem, like with with the Portuguese and the English. I don't think it's getting there, but
yeah
it could be a million different things. A big thing is like somebody will have some really nice samples, but then when you're hiring them out, you get like, you don't get the portfolio quality stuff. You get the everyday work,
yes.
so
And that drove me
um
nuts too, because one of my biggest issues with people was, what style are you looking for?
Yeah.
And I always said the same thing. I said, I want your style.
Right.
yeah.
Well, what style is that? Do you want
Yeah.
Jim Lee? Do you want,
Yeah. Yeah.
this? Do you want that? And we're like, no, I want whatever comes naturally to you. I'm not
Yeah.
fishing for a
Yeah,
style or
everybody
anything.
needs a different input. Like some people, they want it to be spelled out in a full script, and some people work better off a thumbnail, with just like a couple of, like, words around, like some indications, and then there's some, if you're a writer slash artist, you can just have like a 15-minute conversation, just do like the Stan and Jack method, and just then the artist is just laying everything out. But I think it's great to do this stuff live, you know on Zoom or whatever we're using Riverside platform.
Mhm.
And Kurt and I are documenting the whole thing,
Which I think is
because you can see what.
fascinating. Seriously, that's what drew me to you guys. Like I'm a subscriber. I follow you guys.
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
know.
Yeah, well, we are hearing that. I mean, we were just starting to talk to a couple of publishers, and we're hearing that they have these little drawing circle jams where they get on Zoom or they get on some platform, and they're all doing their thing, and they talk about publishing, and they talk about putting stuff out and everything, and they might be doing the plotting. I mean, what we do is like we literally go over the dialogue right then and there, and we finalize it all, and so people can see, oh, should it be this word or that word? No, that one's a little too negative. This one's a little too.
Oh,
And
it
So
is. What
we're
I loved
also,
about what you guys are doing.
yeah, because
yeah, I
the
mean,
thing about it, but let me just
yeah,
interject, Jake, because we are coming
yeah,
up to an hour. The thing about it is that we're even hearing people are kind of refraining from getting too deep into the episodes because they're waiting for the book, and then they want to have the comic to be able to go back to the episodes. And when Jake and I came to this like, hey, we're doing it because it makes us work at least 1 to 3 hours a week on the project. So we're pushing the little stone ahead. But it is definitely for the documentation part of it. And we even tell each other. We were just telling each other in the last episode we recorded some episodes previous that made us laugh because of what we were saying and the topics we had gotten ourselves into. For that being said, now this is where we round it out. This is the
Oh
indie
man,
comic. This is
heck
the
yeah.
indie comic. There's no pressure, Tanner. No pressure. This is the indie comic
There's
exchange where and thank you again for reaching out and obviously spending some time with us today. But we're in a learning curve just as much as you. So we've had a very nice conversation in talking about you and your work and sharing back and forth. But we really want to hear people's take, and even if it's question based, we're not looking
this is the
for
part
for
where
that.
this is the part I was looking forward to actually.
All right, let us have it.
So
Let us have
guys,
it.
our best segment.
guys, I'm telling you what.
Okay.
This is like I said, I was a little disenfranchised with what's going on in kind of like the indie world and whatnot. Everything, especially Kickstarter, everything's the same. Everything's just a TNA book, for the sake of TNA, and very very little
Mhm.
story driven type works. And it was overpriced and everything, and I started looking through. I think I found you guys through maybe Cartoonist Kayfabe. I can't remember, but I was looking for independent, publishers, and I wanted something that had a feel, that was like, I was looking for like Spain Rodriguez. I was looking for
Oh,
S. Clay Wilson. Um, like traditional like 70s, 60s, 70s underground comics, and I can't remember specifically how I came across you guys, but I found
it's
you,
all right. It's
and
all
I
right.
was like,
That's what counts.
what is this? It blew my mind, and straight with it, with the title and everything. I was like, Turbo Pit Fighter. I was like, oh, okay, this looks like something up my alley. And then I started watching you guys, and then I noticed that you guys had the comic exchange, and I'm like, oh, maybe I could do this. I was like, I
Yes,
would. Oh,
yes.
oh man, I can give them a copy of mine. They'll give me a copy of theirs. I was like, this is great.
That's perfect. Thank you. Yep. That's exactly.
and
That's
then I
exactly
got
what
it.
we wanted to happen.
Oh my gosh, guys, your work is amazing.
Thank you.
Like
Oh, thanks.
you guys hooked me. I read the 6 pages, and I was like, oh man, I need more. I was like,
So do we.
oh my god.
That's what we're working on.
But no, it's funny you talked about you loving the Road Warrior, and stuff like I can feel that in your artwork, and I can just feel it's kind of got that Eastman Laird aesthetic to it, and it just
Hmm.
it just had a it just has this feel of a true underground comic book, and and I love it. I love the art style. I think you guys are knocking it out of the park. I love the storyline behind it. um Literally, and I
Okay,
watch I and
you're gonna make Kurt turn red now. Come
well,
on.
it's
Too
true.
late.
Like I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the best things on the market
Thank
right
you.
now.
Oh
Like
wow.
you
Right. Well,
guys are
thanks,
killing
man.
it.
That's really great to hear, and it is so like Kurt. We need like a bell. Like when they say like Spain Rodriguez, and you have to have like a ding sound that you put in there. Because it's great when it comes through, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm I'm 100% imitating my heroes, right? And George Miller, Robert Crumb, and we,
Oh,
we
God,
hope
Crumb,
that comes
yes,
through,
it
you
does.
know and it's so great to hear like the different takes and interpretations, because it really is exciting. It like helps inspire us, right? Like, oh, let's do another episode, let's get some stuff out.
As well
Dude, it
as
shows.
inspire others, and as much accolades you're giving us, there's so much here in this just being, and you're on issue 3, right? Did you just complete issue 3
No, no.
Kickstarter?
We
Where are
did a
you at?
Kickstarter. We technically I'm on issue 2, but we had a lot
Okay.
of issues with the second book.
Okay.
Talk about anything that could go wrong went wrong with that
Okay.
one. So that's
Right.
still kind
All
of in
right.
flux right now.
Right.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law
Right.
at its finest.
But I think and Jake, I know Jake can speak to this, because when we were working together through the '90s, and Jake's up in New York, so I would once a month go and spend the weekend with him, and we would work on stuff ourselves. But the majority of our time was spent at the conventions, getting work or working with others, and just to really reminisce. And I want to make this. I make this statement all the time. Artist Alley was literally like 12 8-foot tables in a big rectangle, and we would put 2 tables in the middle of that, and everybody would then be at their space, but we were constantly sliding our chairs back and turning around, and then working on pages together, or
Oh,
checking
that's
out
awesome.
people's stuff. It was I my background or in history really just goes along ghosting stuff, or finishing pencils, or starting the inks, or for all these indie comic companies they were gone one day when I went up to see Jake, and it was at the Jacob Javits show that in '97 where that warehouse in Jersey opened up, and there was no show. There was absolutely no show. And we were all standing out front of Jacob Javits trying to get in, and Bill Tucci pulls up on his motorcycle and says, "Hey, it's canceled." It gives us the story, and then a friend of mine, Vinny Zerzola, got the Unitarian Church, Jake, downtown, and then
St.
Sunday,
Paul's, I think.
St. Paul's, and in zap, we were there. But then that was when Jake and I realized that this thing's all done, at where we were and everything. But my point is very much the same as from that point to today, is being able to share virtually with somebody, in this platform of a podcast that's on YouTube, and also to inspire people to just do it, like literally, and share it. I think one of the things I've learned since coming back into the art world, the last 8 years, is as much as social media and the promoting and the Kickstartering and the blah, 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 all that stuff, the key is to enjoy sharing. If you can't enjoy the sharing part of it, then get out. Just go work at a grocery store or something like that. Because I really am corny to the point where I think the people who have made it the longest in comics are the ones that not only love the medium, but they love the other people that are involved, whether they're creators or they're readers. And I'm just going to say right now, Tanner, thank you so much for exactly what you said, the accolades you've given us, but that chance that you took. And we hope we've given you at least a platform to share.
No, I appreciate that, and like I said, you guys gave me an amazing book. Like I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't enough to wet my whistle. I want more.
Well, we are. Well, you can hear Jake, who's not allowed to talk that much today, by the way, because he needs to be finishing the back matter page. We have 6 pages. We have 6 pages that are almost completed to put ourselves into a second. Which will be pages 1 through 12. And this is where when we're coming to the end. We're also not a one and done interview. So when we get this, we're hoping by the end of March, we're going to be in a position where I can reach out to our list of people, which are your number 13. And then, we get the timing down. So when you have your next comic and we have ours, we get the exchange, and then we get to sit down and catch up with each other, share what we've learned, and the things. So that we're not a one and done. And I have to thank you, Jake. I'll let you say your final words, but then we'll give Tanner the last words to share where he's at, where to visit him, and of course everything will be listed in the description below. Go for it, Jake.
Yeah. My last comment would be, thank you so much for the warm words. And I think there's a difference between the people that are going to watch our podcast because maybe they're interested in the process of making the comic, and then there's going to be people that are just watching it because the comic's made, and and they don't want to, we were told explicitly by Dan, he doesn't want to watch us because he just wants to see when the comic is done, and then maybe you'll go back later and drop in with some episodes and check in. But Kurt, for Tanner, I just had an idea, and Tanner, don't feel like you're on the, you have to commit or anything. I mean, for now, just say yeah. But in real life, you don't have to. I mean, it all depends on schedules. But would you want to sit in? Would you want to sit in for a when we get back to our regular episodes of just making turbo pages? Would you want to sit in on that and just be like a commenter in the side?
Oh man, boy, would I actually? That would be
Oh,
Oh
amazing.
wow, Kurt.
I got
All
it.
right,
I
so
got it. Writing it down.
yes, so yeah, I mean, we're going to be a little bit finishing up this teaser, which does interrupt
It'll be like, yeah, it'll be in
page
like
production.
April or
But
something. It'll be in
yeah, but
April.
I'm on
Okay.
page 18 of issue 2, and he is on page what, like 14 of issue 1, inking,
No.
something like that.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty far along. But I mean, we'll be
Well,
definitely.
you
I mean, we'll be
because
already working on the third teaser in like getting closer to getting that in, and then I have an idea that I'm
right.
going to be proposing on how we release the third teaser. So, yeah, no, I
Right, we
love
talk.
that. I love that
We'll talk
idea.
about all that stuff. We talk about all this crap on the air, And now that we're talking more with publishers, it's getting a lot more interesting. So,
Heck yeah,
definitely, a couple of months, right? And we'll have you right back.
that sounds great.
Awesome,
Awesome.
man. Awesome.
So take us
Good.
out, Tanner, on where we can find you and get a hold of your comics.
Oh, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Stephen Tanner Hurley. It's my full name. Tanner for short. And yeah, you can hit me up on Messenger if you're interested in a comic. You can just let me know that you're interested, and we can
Do
cash
you
app
spend
or
more time
PayPal or
on
whatever the case
Facebook
may
than
be.
on Instagram? Do you spend more time on Facebook than
I spend
Instagram?
more time on Facebook probably.
Okay, that's what it
Yeah.
sounds like. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, then.
So,
And everything, all the links will be down in the description.
right, and Kurt, you're also going to post the covers, right? All the covers.
Yeah, he's going to email them to me.
Yeah, I'll email all those to you.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome, man. Good episode, guys. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Tanner, take care of yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Heck yeah. You guys take care.
All right.